to dig back into sort of the micro, in a sense that we hear about the value of business and stuff. Creative entrepreneurs in this city, there are a lot of single-person operators, and JamFactory is something that's quite unique. There's nothing else like it in Australia, and nothing else quite like it in the world. And it attracted me here to Adelaide, and I'm stoked to be a resident of this city. It's nearly 40 years old, and it's been training and nurturing the careers of creative entrepreneurs for most of that time. It's a not-for-profit, it's partially government funded, and it is by its own nature incredibly entrepreneurial. We run a 2-year training program for people in ceramics, glass, furniture and metal design, and what the real job is to take talented graduates from schools around the country and indeed around the world and give them the skills, both technically and in business terms, to be successful creative entrepreneurs. Of course, we have studios and galleries and shops that allow us to do that. But the core part of what we do is this training program. And we have creative staff who mentor these people, but it's a process of kind of learning through doing. We really think it's important that people have the opportunity to live real experiences and learn from those experiences, a bit like the kind of prototyping that Stephen talks about with the city. You test stuff, you learn from it and you move on. That's very much the process we use. And people are engaged in a process of making things in the city, which is quite important. We lose our connection to stuff, and we have the opportunity for people to engage with the processes of making here in the city. They learn through doing, as I say, and production is an important thing. The economics of production are quite useful and important in a kind of sustainable business point of view. And so by producing things in the studios like these oil bottles or lamps like these, the process of design development, testing with clients, right through to prototyping and then manufacturing, they're learning through this process all the time, developing their own products to sell out there in the world under mentorship using the same processes and procedures. We take on a whole range of commission work and from small things like trophies right through to interior architectural things like this wine storage unit. And indeed we've done a lot of work in the public space, and the more broad the range of experiences the associates who do the training program can have, the more capable they'll be of sustaining themselves in the future. The public realm is a really important place, and some of our associates in the Metal Studio have been involved in some of the work around some of the rethinking of little details, the jewellery of the pavement, if you like, with the new Rundle Mall redevelopment. Those are exciting opportunities for them to learn, be involved in that design process, but then hopefully legacies of that will be part of their experience as well. The program has a great reputation, and we attract people from all over the country. These are people just finished last year who decided to stay in Adelaide because they see Adelaide as a city that will give back to them. There's a relative low cost of living, there is a strong creative community, and there are pathways and infrastructure, of which the JamFactory is a part, that allow them to maintain practices here. Indeed, we bring these people from around the world. Very interesting that in more recent years, the kind of design opportunities in terms of entrepreneurial businesses have led to an interesting range of collaborative businesses. These are three examples of two-person partnerships that have emerged in recent time, where one of the partners in each case has come to Adelaide because of the JamFactory's glass studio and partnered up with a local South Australian, in some ways literally, there were at least one marriage here. But the marble merchants, Dan and Danny and Jan. Jan came from Canada. Mono is John Kwan, who's a graduate of the South Australian School of Art and Marston TAFE, married Kumi, who came from Japan to do the glass program, and Illumini, Karen Cunningham and Mandy King. Mandy came from the United States. They're all running small and at this stage kind of embryonic, but increasingly successful and gaining lots of media attention and increasing commercial return through these sort of entrepreneurial businesses which are based here because of the circumstances that make it more viable than to base themselves somewhere else. The history of having a hot glass studio, which is a rare thing, means that Adelaide has a highly disproportionate number of successful glass artists contributing to the local economy. Now, the important thing about attracting and retaining creative talent is that it has all these social and economic benefits to the city. You know, most of these people make their living from export sales. So most of the stuff that they sell goes interstate or overseas. These people are pretty mobile as well. They travel quite extensively and they are ambassadors for the creative vibrancy of the city of Adelaide. And perhaps most importantly, they're connected and they attract like-minded people here. And I think these examples I mentioned is a real testament to that. Kids is part of what I want to talk to as well. We see our role, but not just our role, the role that we can play in generating further activity through the city. The creativity of kids is the sort of hope for the future, if you like. We do a range of things from hands-on workshops in pottery and glass and so forth that really allow people to see different kinds of ways of expressing themselves and their creativity. A particular project that we did over the last couple of years was working with a local primary school, Strait Primary School, which is a terrific primary school in the city, with a commitment to the arts, a resident art teacher. We were engaged to do an Artists in Schools program which ran actually over a couple of years in 12-month modules, where emerging artists, those trainees I was talking about, and some of the established artists, the staff that we have, spent time as artists in schools working with the kids, a core group of about 18 over the 12 months, but more broadly with the whole school population, to really look at new ways of thinking about professional careers in creativity. So by actually working on real projects, the same principles we use in our training program were transferred to some extent working with primary school age kids. Two parts of the project. One, working at a small scale of the body, where in this case over the first half of the year kids develop ideas for jewellery, in this case brooches. They see it right through to commercial production, so that the whole design process, the concept and ideation, through to prototyping and so forth, right through into marketing, packaging and distribution. So these things were put together in this sort of slick packaged way, partly manufactured in the JamFactory studios, partly at the school, and then sold to parents and friends to raise money for the school. So they got to be involved in something that was not just an idea that had a kind of immediate impact, but something they could see the process. It happens in the world all the time. Things take time to gestate and become real, and they were able to witness that and be inspired about the kinds of things that they can engage in creative industries as a real and genuine profession, not just a sideline. The other component of the project dealt with the built environment, thinking about that much bigger scale of the building, if you like, and a similar process of design workshops to come up with ideas around a public artwork for the school community, and a program of creating these cloud forms out of a module, a kind of simple bent metal module, and a series of workshops over time, actually making models out of paper, the whole kind of very hands-on processes, where over time they were able to see that translation of their ideas and the process that they were intimately engaged in having an actual outcome. You can see some of these things hanging in the foyer. They're now installed in the school as part of the sort of program of public artworks around that school. So again, they see this kind of engagement at the early stages and understand the processes of transforming their creative thinking into real, actual outcomes. And the interrogative learning from all of that in terms of looking at the world differently is quite profound. Of course, the visibility of creativity in the city is incredibly important too, and we are blessed in this town with some terrific cultural infrastructure. One of the great things about the JamFactory in particular is it puts the kind of process at centre stage, not just the kind of product, if you like. And the opportunity to actually engage with and have conversations with people who are making things. And the kind of the happenstance encounters that can emerge when you're actually, you know, in a public place where it's okay to have a kind of casual conversation with someone who has quite a different life experience, who is creative, who is sustaining themselves from that kind of lifestyle. The magic that can happen, the kind of networks that can be created and commercial opportunities that can be generated are quite extraordinary. Through our exhibition program in the galleries, we take this public engagement stuff pretty seriously. This is an example of a show we did on looking at prototyping, and there have been some conversations in many of the conversations I've had around this city about Adelaide being an ideal place in scale and geography for prototyping ideas. We obviously are very interested in the notion of prototype as the ideal meeting place between design thinking and craftsmanship, which is where our history comes from. The prototype is a place to kind of bring those idea sets together. But what we have the opportunity with a gallery like this, where it's not about sales so much as trying to inform and engage the public to think about these things, to engage with them, and to understand better the processes that are required to get the kinds of outcomes of quality that we desire in the things around us. And people who are interested can engage more deeply. And we have lots of people, business people and other kinds of community stakeholders who come in and do workshops either as organised groups or as individuals wanting to engage in that creative space. They may not have ever had that opportunity before. It's a kind of early learning experience for them. The people who teach those workshops are those associates. So one of the skill sets they take away and are able to contribute back to the community is teaching. And it's a double up slide. I guess, most interesting thing is that for people to be able to engage with, and whether it's somewhere like the JamFactory, or at the JamFactory, or somewhere like it, or other kinds of creative endeavour that this city does support so well, to be able to, in the first instance, engage with the process of its production, which we can do in the studios at the JamFactory, to be able to learn more about the motivations, stories behind those things through an educative or informative experience through exhibitions or some of the events that we pride ourselves on in this city with the city of festivals. And then how ultimately we can support through our activities. Ultimately, in order to sustain and maintain creative entrepreneurial culture, there's a phrase, we do need to kind of support it. And of course, the retail environment that we have is the most basic engagement. It's the entry point for most people to engage with JamFactory. But hopefully, really, that's just the end bit. That's the bit where all of those other things come to play. That transaction supports maintaining this vibrant city. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.